Lost in space. Astronauts talk to each other about the strange phenomenon they had seen on the edge of another sphere. When they had gone to the moon, traveled for miles to such a long way, lost in transition, trying to reach heaven. In space, dreaming of giving their testimony, with stories they no longer could contain. If they had found something unique, habitation exists through black hole, from our world to somewhere intrigue, worth more than silver or gold. Imagine distance in mind over matter. They would be able making regular tours, see the stars, often those we adore, move from Earth to planetary shores. Lost in space embraced the risks they took. They tried to get to space on the next shuttle. With extra space for scientific book, they will fly away from earthly trouble and find curious thrills of adventure with thousands of aliens orbiting Earth. In our space becoming more of a danger, society will soon put them in mental health. All right, with that, I don't know what you call it. That poem. what exactly did I just read?
Well, I think we'd like to know what this is, first of all.
I think the key point is nobody really cares about that particular poem. They care about what they're actually listening to, right? And this is SG2 on space. So
Yay.
what is that? That is the only weekly space show. You can catch this on youtube.com/@shinga/streams. And the disembodied voice in the background, why don't we there?
Hey, Shan.
There we go. There. Here you go. Headband guy, Dr. Leonard Kramer, good to see you, of course, as always. Nice headset and headband and shirt. I think they all match wonderfully.
They match. It's my swag.
It's your swag.
As I've said many times. Yep.
All right,
Hey, and
here's
that was,
mine.
I actually
I
thought,
got a beetle. See,
oh yeah,
that's different.
I have a
All
peace
right,
sign.
go
I have
ahead.
a peace sign around here somewhere. But I actually like that poem.
Okay, that's good. I really should say, yeah. It's not a bad poem. So it was called "Lost in Space," I suppose, which is not in any relevance to the TV show, but that's what this poem is called by a guy named I guess Jerry Legister. I have no idea who that is. But point is, today's topic, which is episode 100, if 178, unbelievable, talking about challenges of human survival in space.
And and just, it's more fun than I can imagine. Just most fun thing I well, not the most fun I've ever done, but it's really fun. So
Okay. Likewise, I mean, I think all through all these episodes, Leonard, you've taken part in definitely a good chunk of it.
it's an adventure.
It is definitely an adventure. Before I go on, I will say thank you to our supporters on Patreons, Kyle Baker, Sam Welsh, and Atun Ra. Support the show on patreon.com/SG2 on space. This ticker will keep running. But let's talk about survival in space, right? Since that's our main topic of the day. Now, Leonard, as we all know, space is not a pleasant place to be for most for most living organisms, right?
Yeah.
Even if you have like a spacesuit on or a space station, you still run the risk of dying. Especially, well, actually, you know what? Instead of me blabbing, why don't I just
No, I
ask
like you blabbing. You go ahead. Just yeah.
Well, I want to. One of the pictures I found out
I think you're doing
is
good.
talking about like space radiation, for instance. This is from the European Space Agency, one of their infographics.
Yeah.
So this talks about the radiation dosages on, and I think what is prevalent here is that in red bold it says 1 day in space is equivalent to the radiation received on Earth for a whole year. And as you can see, the higher up you go, like the International Space Station, for instance, you get 250 times more radiation than right on the ground. And an airplane actually you get 40 times.
Yeah.
Then you travel to the moon and Mars, you get 700 times. So what is all this radiation?
I think some of that might be a little bit exaggerated for up to space station, but yeah, this is an issue. So what is radiation is like Well, you know what it is. It's like the the radiation, the waves and particles that travel through space.
I know we talked about radiation last time with the ultramagnetic waves.
Right. So we said electromagnetic waves, but sometimes it's also particles, like protons or the nuclei of atomic species. Sometimes it's electrons. Sometimes it's even positron. I mean, like anti electrons that are detected. And the thing is, it's like it's everywhere, and we live in an environment that has radiation, and that's what. But for the most part, it doesn't really affect us, except that, well, visible light is a form of radiation, and we use that so that we can see things. And the thermal radiation is like infrared, and that keeps us warm. But we're not really on the surface of the Earth. We're not really exposed to particles very much. These high energy particles. Most people know about like atomic bombs that and nuclear reactors that produce radiation, but we're not generally exposed to that to any great extent. There are some radioactive isotopes that are in an environment. Certain kinds of potassium and radon is a radioactive gas that we're exposed to. But overall, our radiation exposure on the surface of the Earth is very benign, and we're protected by the air, and we're protected even more from the magnetic field of the Earth. And so we've been starting to think about in the past 10 years now, we were starting to consider this idea that we're going to go back out into the interplanetary environment, go back to the moon. Um, some folks like Elon Musk and other guys like that are talking about going to Mars. And so we have to start thinking about this problem. The astronauts that went to the moon in uh, in the late '60s and early '70s, when I was a teenager, actually, basically, um, they were only there for
I
about.
imagine that you as a teenager. I cannot even imagine it. Go on.
Oh
Sorry
yeah,
for
yeah.
that remark.
I had a polyester shirt. I actually different times my hair was down to my shoulders. Sometimes it was in an afro like this in the movie.
Really?
Yeah, and it was completely.
I believe it.
And I had bell bottom slacks
Oh
and
my.
disco and all that good stuff. So, and I wish it would come back because it was.
Sorry, that
So
was a
so
total
anyway, we
tangent.
were talking
Go
about
on.
I had a lapse there. All right. So anyway, so the Earth's magnetic field protects us, and it protects the International Space Station because it's less than 400 kilometers above the Earth, and it's deep inside of the magnetosphere of the Earth, and so the the particles, the high energy particles like protons and what they call high Z, which is stands for the mass of 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 uh, of nuclei, heavy nuclei like even uranium. Sometimes they think some of it comes from the sun. Actually, a fairly minor component comes from the sun. The most dangerous elements are coming from what are called um, uh, galactic cosmic rays, or GCR.
So that sounds
Yeah.
really esoteric. What exactly do people mean when they say galactic cosmic rays?
So these are particles, mostly protons, but also heavier ions like
Mhm.
the whole all of the all everything, carbon, oxygen, right on up
So
to
they're just shooting out from like
they're
various
they're
parts of space
they are coming. Yes, and they're coming
from
in
outside the
isotropically
solar system,
from
right?
outside the solar system, and probably most of them are generated by supernova explosions, and the particles are just zipping around in space, and they come into our environment. Now, interestingly, when the sun is most active, most people know that the sun has an 11-year sunspot cycle. It's actually a
Hmm.
22-year cycle, but it's symmetric, but never mind that. When the sun is most active, the magnetic field from the sun, now not from the earth but from the sun, permeates and goes out, and it's expanded, and it goes further out into space, and it's much more disordered, right? So if you imagine, electrically charged particles, which are all these ions that are coming in, they try to follow along the magnetic field line because otherwise they will spiral. In other words, did we ever talk about that? Did we ever talk about? I think we did at one
We
time.
did.
So
Yeah.
so when when the sun's magnetic field during highly active periods is very disordered, then the kinks and the wiggles and so forth in the magnetic field tend to scatter the galactic cosmic rays that are coming from very far out from the interstellar medium,
Hmm.
and tends to shield us a little bit better. They get scattered more. But when the sun is quiet, when the sun is more quiet, then the galactic cosmic rays go up more. And these are particles that, when an astronaut is in the interplanetary medium, um, his body is getting penetrated by. If I think I saw, if the energy of a just an ambient proton would be like, if we just use a unit of like one, say, well, the energy of these particles that are coming in, the same proton that was coming in from the galactic environment at relativistic speeds, very close to the speed of light, it would be like it was 10,000 times, between 1,000 and 10,000 times heavier than it would be, just because of the amount of energy that it's carrying. And so these particles are penetrating the astronauts up there and also the equipment. Um, and so the statistics that I'm seeing on the Earth, radiation like this is measured. There's like an international agreement to use a unit called a sievert, and I don't know sievert. I don't know the history. Usually, I know the history about people, but I don't really know who Sievert was. But or is, I don't know. This is measured in sieverts, and the normal radiation environment on Earth will give us about something between 1 and 5 millisieverts per year. And some of the radiation exposure requirements for people who work with radiation things stuff, I think it's not supposed to exceed something like 50 millisieverts per year. So that's the radiation exposure hazard for a safe work environment. The astronauts are getting, are you ready? They're being exposed when they're outside of the Earth's environment, between
Hmm.
the Earth and the Moon, or between the Earth and
Right.
Mars. They're getting exposed to that much or more, 10 times to 100 times more every day.
Wait, so there, okay,
So
so looking at this chart right here, it says like 50 millisieverts, SIEVERT, is the lowest dose for any statistical risk of cancer. So you're saying astronauts are getting that at the every single day?
if I understand the literature that I've been reading,
Hmm.
the astronauts are getting more than that every single day. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to die immediately, but it does mean that they're getting exposed to this. And I haven't really heard very much talked about. And it just seems like, I mean, a lot of people, you know, you can find people who they seem to know about this, but I don't know, that there's been very much done either. Um, and keep in mind, the International Space Station is not the right environment to be exposing, because it's not exposed to that much. It's exposed to more radiation, but not of that level. And so, to me, it seems kind of alarming that they're
It,
getting.
it does
Um,
seem really alarming.
so I know that there are things that could be done, like maybe shielding, but the shielding that would be required to stop galactic cosmic rays, if you just have a little bit of shielding, some kind of like, what the shielding can do is, there can be, I don't remember what it's called, whether it's called spallation or something like that. The radiation particles will hit the shield and then cause fission of nuclei in there, and then you spray out even more particles. So instead of getting hit by a single really really energetic particle that might go right through you, you get hit by 10,000 particles that are from the fission products of the um, of the ion hitting the shield. So if you have like you're thinking, maybe I can put a piece of aluminum between me and the or the environment. So we really need to be stopping these particles completely, or greatly attenuating them. And the other thing is, we need to be understanding. I think even before that, we need to be understanding what is the risk that we're taking by exposing ourselves to this environment, this much higher energy radiation. And as you pointed out, over 50 millisieverts per year is elevating your probability of getting cancer and so forth. So anyway, that's what I had to say. Hello? Hello? Radiation.
Okay, so I don't know
Well,
you probably saw me got off the screen slightly, right?
that was awkward. Yeah.
It's because my whole browser,
Actually, I knew you were going to do that, so that's why I stopped talking.
the entire thing just froze, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even unmute myself, and then kick me out.
Come on, Shen. We're in the 21st century.
I understand we're in the 21st century. This is what happens when you try to show something, and then suddenly your whole
Yeah.
screen just freezes. It happens. So I get what you're saying. So what is the solution here then?
Well, I mean, we can start talking about things like I guess there is the thought that the astronauts can burrow underground on the moon. The
Right.
lunar what they call regolith, which I like saying. I like saying that.
That's a good word.
The material that makes up the crust of the moon is a very effective shield. If we and so the idea is that we can burrow under that. We can also accumulate it into some kind of container,
It
and
it
then use a mass driver to send it out into space, and then catch it, and then use it to build stuff. But launching any kind of shielding from Earth, I think is a non-starter. I think it's just
so you're basically saying the classic like transparent dome or whatever that's on the lunar surface is just a dumb idea. I'm not a dumb idea,
I
but
don't
it's just
know. I think so. I think that people can't live, without shielding on the moon or Mars for years.
like
I
as
think,
a yeah.
yeah, I think
So
they can live. They can live for a month, you know, but after a while they'll get
the
sick.
Apollo astronauts, they were there for what at most how many
On
days?
the surface, 3 days,
Okay, so
and
we really
those
yeah.
missions would last something like 10 to 12 days.
So
So
if
I think if I understand all of this, and I can be I can be corrected on this, but I think that surface activity, like with just thin shielding, like
mhm.
maybe what we're observing here, is just not a thing that can be done. Certainly, we can't stay in an orbit in a space station around the moon, which is one of the
I thought they're building a space station that's around
yeah.
the moon.
So I don't know what their idea there is. I don't think that people can live in a space station orbiting the moon um, permanently the way they can the ISS space station, because ISS is low.
Right.
ISS is International Space Station, the one that's
And
been
the main
flying.
reason is because for ISS we have the what do you call it the Earth magnetosphere protecting us, right?
Yes.
Shielding us
So
from the
right.
hard particles.
So there's ideas that if we can lift the regolith, the soil from the moon, and because the moon doesn't have as much gravity, so it's rather easier to eject something from the moon, to take off from the moon. And there's even thoughts that we could build like linear accelerator type, like catapults, um, like uh, magnetic catapults that are driven
Well,
by electricity, and
hmm
so we could fill up bags of this material and send it out into space to capture, and then maybe reorient it in different containers and material structures so that we could shield the humans living there. So, but I don't know what other kind of ways to mitigate it against this. We could use a magnetic field. If we had very powerful magnetic field, we
how do
might
we
be able
generate a
to.
magnetic field
Well,
of that?
you drive electric currents through a coil. I think we
You
talked
mean like
about
the your lunar base or your building is going to have a
a
giant
giant magnetic field that would sort of emulate what the Earth's magnetosphere does. that's a feasible thing to talk
Okay.
about. But
But in terms of like a actual space station that like the lunar gateway, you're saying that is something which is kind of doesn't
I
really have a solid plan there in terms
I
of
I'm
radiation
I
protection.
well, I would like for somebody.
Yeah.
I've frozen again. Can you
Are
see
you?
me, Shen? No, I'm not. Okay. Well, my picture's frozen, but
Yes,
so
you are frozen. This
I
is
am
just one of
frozen.
those days.
W- Yeah, and not only that, but the clock has frozen also, which disturbs me. I find that are we is has time stopped?
Time
And
has stopped for you. It's relative, you see. Time has stopped for
uh-huh.
you, but it has not for me.
Yeah. So
But
I'm
from
gonna
my side, I see you as frozen. And it certainly seems like Leonard just disappeared. So, you know, wow, that was rather interesting. Um, I think what his point though at the end was that, assuming he jumps back on, um, is that you know, there's not really a good solution where he doesn't quite know of one yet that the lunar gateway has in terms of radiation shielding. Um, so you know that is definitely under analysis right now, according to NASA. And I'm just gonna briefly, I suppose, see if I can share something here from a article. Um, New area of science on the lunar gateway, right? So a trial of radiation instruments planned for gateway, blah blah blah, space weather, near rectilinear halo orbit. Okay, da 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 da. All right, so um, yeah, it's far from Earth's protective atmosphere and magnetic fields that largely shield humans, including astronauts living on the International Space Station, in Earth's orbit from space weather and radiation. So I see you can see Leonard is back. He's probably trying to get reconfigured. But the whole
back.
point here is that, yay, glad to see you
The
back.
show must go on.
Yes. So you can see that there are instruments on the gateway that will help scientists understand space weather. Now, in terms of, hey, you're going to measure all this, but what are you going to do to protect the astronauts?
Right. So one of the
That
things
part,
is, yeah, that's true. We can look at the sun. We can kind of monitor the sun. And then if the sun has some activity, some prominences or flares or something, we have enough time to seek shelter. In other words, and actually that's even been done for the space station, where there's been some kind of some activity on the sun, because
yeah,
we're not completely immune to it in the space station, which we can talk about another time. But that doesn't work for the galactic cosmic rays, because they're just raining down all the time. And we
from
don't even
everywhere.
know, yeah, and we don't even really have long duration. It'd be very interesting to observe galactic cosmic rays for a long period of time, maybe decades, and see
This
if
is
there's some
really,
kind of variability. I do
I don't
know that
know. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do know that there is variability with the solar cycle by the mechanism that I cited earlier, about how the magnetic field is all disturbed. It's called Forbush decrease. There was somebody named Forbush
What
in
is
this.
for Bush decrease?
It has to do with that mechanism that I was talking about. That magnetic field, the magnetic galactic cosmic rays are reduced during times when the solar activity
Oh,
is
I see what you
greatly
mean.
increased in activity.
Right.
So great intensity.
I just find it interesting that the Lunar Gateway page does not talk about, in terms of the radiation, it doesn't talk about galactic cosmic rays at all.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I I don't know. I'm willing to have someone call in, dial in, text in something, and tell us the answer to this. I have a feeling that I
That doesn't exist.
I earnestly think that it can't be done. I think that we cannot have people living in the interplanetary environment for months or years without being shielded, and because
Okay.
after a few months they will get sick
Well,
from.
here's an interesting paper I just found. If it's of any interest, galactic cosmic from arXiv, of course. Galactic cosmic rays and solar energetic particles in cis lunar space.
Yeah, cislunar. That means between the moon and Earth. So
Yeah. So
mhm.
through NASA's upcoming Artemis missions, humans will spend more time. Humans will spend more time in cislunar space than ever before, supported by the expansive infrastructure required for extended missions to the moon, including surface habitat, communications network, and the lunar gateway. This paper focuses on galactic cosmetics (GCRs) and solar
Yeah,
energetic particles (SEPs). GCRs are particles of hundreds of mega electron volts per nucleon and above, generated in highly energetic astrophysical environments in the Milky Way galaxies, such as supernova and pulsars.
right.
Um, yeah. So, and then
And
blah blah blah.
they're also saying the particles impinge isotropically. That means from every direction.
Yep.
You know,
Oh yeah,
isotrop.
yeah.
Yeah.
Importantly,
So
isotropically means
yeah,
everywhere
yeah.
on the
Because
universe.
if the sun is active, like you can turn your vehicle to face the
Away
heaviest
from the
parts of your
sun.
vehicle, kind of pointing in the direction of where the particles are coming, and kind of protect
Right.
yourself that way. But you can't do it with the galactic cosmic rays. And so I, you know, I so what does it say? Current and prospective future gap in energetic particle measurements in the hundreds of MeV per nuclei. We were in
Well,
key
I mean,
observations. Yeah.
you
So
can understand the gaps, but then okay. So first of all, we need to understand what they are, I suppose, the particle population sources. But second of all, in terms of actual survival, like what are you going to do about it?
yeah, well,
So
I think we need to. Maybe somebody will come and say, "Oh, yeah, you can be exposed to a hundred, 1,000 millisieverts, per day, and you might, get a little bit itchy or something. Maybe it's
nah.
benign, but I don't think so, because the legal standards for radiation exposure are thousands of times smaller than that. Wow,
I
that's
mean,
kind of scary.
this is something I found, which it looks really scary, doesn't it? I mean, look at that. Your brain. Okay, so this is
Yeah.
exposure to radiation, right? Neural behavior decrements, and such as anxiety, fatigue, and affects
Uh-huh.
negatively like performance. Damage to quiescent neural stem cells in the hippocampus. Cataract formation in your eyes.
Yeah,
Increased
that I
cancer
heard
risk.
about. Yeah.
Degenerative damage to the circulatory system, prodromal effects such as nausea and vomiting, gonads susceptible to cancer and genetic
Uh-huh.
germline mutations, skin burns, changes to bone, muscle, and cartilage microarchitecture.
Yeah.
Does not sound very good.
No, it doesn't sound good, although, I don't I don't know how real that is. It's just a question. It doesn't sound like the pieces are fitting together to me, as far as, the planning. So there's no problem with us repeating what Apollo did. Like, so people can go to the moon, they can stay there maybe for a few weeks, right? Maybe even a month, and they will be exposed to this radiation, but maybe they'll be okay, but not for months and months.
Years, maybe.
Yeah, I don't
When
I don't think
like
so.
they say like a permanent what is the settlement on the moon, right? So what is that? That would
The
mean like
settle it
years.
it would need to be it would need to be shielded. They need to address the shielding issue. So, well, I wish I knew more about this, and I don't really know how to find out um, more
Uh,
about it. So,
I mean, the way to find out more is just to, I don't know, read up on it, I suppose. But the question then is anybody working on developing anything that would
right.
actually be
Because
implemented.
all I see in the program, is like, max RAM forward, we're going to go back to the moon, and they're talking about this gateway. Now, I think I did hear somebody say that the gateway is the orbiting station that orbits around um, the moon. That it's not intended to be permanently uh, occupied. But I really don't know how to get any other information about that. So,
Right. I
hmm
mean, yeah, this is probably a little outdated. I don't know. Are we're still going there on 2024, right? I don't
yeah,
know
I
about
think
that
I think
though.
so. I think things are going pretty well, as far
Okay.
as the engineering and technical schedule. And we didn't even talk about the threat to hardware. But
What is the
you
threat to hardware?
Well, it's the same thing that happens to people. I mean, these particles will come in, and they'll cause bits in computer hardware to switch. And so if you have like a thruster firing or attitude control or environmental control hardware that's run by computer, it could give you the wrong answer, and you'd never even really be able to detect it. So the way to mitigate against that is to have redundant systems. So for example, I'm working on a spacecraft that's going to have 6 GPS receivers. So and those then it's for that purpose. It's so that we can mitigate against.
Can you explain this? This, let's see. I found this picture just now. Explain this picture. It's talking about like a bit flip.
Okay, looks like it looks kind of like a schematic, or like a cartoon kind of thing.
Yep.
So yeah, so the radiation that's coming in is a particle, and it's a charged particle, like a proton, and it will strike the conductors or the active material in the memory of the computer, and will cause in this case, this looks like a 16-bit number. So this is a 16-bit number which expresses it expresses a particular digit, 4610, and that
Right.
looks about right. So if that digit that's over 2 to the 12th there, so that's the 12th bit. If it gets struck by a particle, then it will
If
flip to 0. You know, it'll it'll
and then
it'll
you'll have a vastly different number.
and you'll have a big different number. I've actually had experience with bit flip issues on spacecraft telemetry, and it was like almost 40 years ago, working on a
Mhm.
spacecraft that went to Venus, and all sorts of trying to interpret data based upon because the exponent is a different set of bits than the mantissa of the number, and so when the exponent gets a bit flip in it, it makes the number jump by orders of magnitude. So it'll go from 10 to the 3 to 10 to the 6 to 10 to the ninth, and so you'll see numbers like outliers in your data stream that resemble that kind of thing. So
Yeah, that's really interesting. I suppose for, as you were saying earlier, I think before the show formally started, for electronics, we can just have what is a redundancy, right?
So
Backup.
so so we can have redundancy, and typically these kind of bit flips are not they're not fatal to the hardware, although we need to test for that. You have the potential for you to get a particle hit that would turn the GPS receiver into a brick. That's the
Right.
that's the jargon. They tell you it's been bricked. Sometimes you'll hear them say that, meaning it's just a brick now. It doesn't work anymore. So, but usually that doesn't happen. Usually it's something transient like that. I know that I know mostly about GPS receivers. I know that the receivers on the space station that I worked with for many years would go into um, a hang up. They will just hang. They'll just stop sending data, and once in a while they'll continue to send data, but it'll be sort of erratic. So yeah,
Yeah. Um, we can we have some redundant humans?
no, no, you cannot. Unless we're going to invade France and to fight the Germans or something like that. If that's what we're talking about, we might want to do that. But
That's
um,
so funny.
we don't do that with people, and not in space flight.
Right, right. Okay.
Right.
So,
One other thing is that there is a possibility and the potential that people who are a little bit older, like
uh-huh.
in their 60s, but are otherwise fit, are likely to die from something else before they get sick from the radiation.
What are they going to die from?
Well, they'll die from what people die from when they get really, really old.
Okay. Are you saying you should send older people into space since they're going to die anyway?
It's Well, everyone
Uh,
is going to die anyway. But what I'm saying is that the effect on older people is less significant, because it takes
oh,
it
okay.
takes
I
it
get
take
it.
so if you're exposed, if you have a certain level of exposure, I propose you have a
Mhm.
chance of getting cancer over the next 20 or 30 years. But if your life expectancy, because you're 65 or 70, is not that long anyway, then you're not really at risk.
That's
See?
a very interesting strategy. I have not thought about it like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Some people have nominated me to
I was just thinking, are you
to
nominating
yeah,
yourself?
no, I'm not, but other people
Y-
have.
Okay, I mean,
So,
on the other hand, though, I mean, we talk about radiation for quite a chunk, but really there are other things that affect you as well. I mean, just due to the microgravity environment, we don't understand that. I mean, we understand that to a degree, but
yeah, one of the things
yeah.
that made me want to talk about this was something I was reading on online the other night about these ventricles in the brain that seem to fill up with fluid. That there's voids inside. No, inside the normal brain. There's some tissue that's in the center of the brain, or voids, like openings that have fluid in them, and they depend upon gravity to retain a certain size. And that what had been observed was that in astronauts, the void area had increased significantly, and it took a very long time. It took years for it to kind of return to normal. The article didn't say anything about whether there's any harm from it, but it kind of like disturbed me when I read about that. Um, so there,
Like,
yeah. So there's all kinds of other things, and bone loss, that you lose bone fraction, you become osteoporotic, and it takes years for you to recover from that.
well, I mean,
So
astronauts these days they go up and they stay there for what, a year at most, and then they
yeah,
come
and
down.
and so the routine is for them to be exercising constantly, and monitoring their health situation and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so with that, like, yeah, I mean, I suppose you could combat some of that. Um,
Well, we
but
don't
you're
know.
still
It's not obvious to me that the ISS has. I know that they're always talking about how much science they're doing on the space station, and but I don't really see the papers from that. I know I
the
know they have
biggest
to.
science is probably the humans there.
It's probably, yeah. Yeah, the biggest science has to do with the humans there, but the problem with that is that you only have 7 people at most up there at a time, so your statistical confidence in the results that you're getting is, it's almost impossible to get anything of value when you don't have a statistically significant cohort. I mean,
Hmm.
and I wouldn't be surprised if they do have science that's coming out, but it's like one person or two people, and you
Hmm.
really need like about 40 people to study. And you'd be better off, I know people get emotional about this, but using animals. But I would only want to use, like humane things with animals.
Yeah,
So
I thought we do test with animals,
yeah, I don't.
but
Yeah, but something that's humane to the animals, or maybe just the tissue. So, because you know, I'm not up for hurting animals. It's just a
to test
it,
animals by putting
yeah,
them in space and seeing how the overall their body like and
yeah,
brain degenerates. Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of not up for that. So, but
Understood. That makes a lot of sense. All right. So, what else are we talking about?
well, usually at about this time of the show, you have some other topic that you like to talk about.
What could
I
possibly be the other
I
topic here?
I,
I mean, all right.
I don't
So
know.
let's let's
Were
talk
you
about
thinking?
this really interesting. Oh no, no! Please don't tell me that my. All right. Well, my browser has done this thing where it froze again. Imagine that.
Tonight has been a great night. I mean, I
I
got
mean, at
kicked
least I'm
off,
not
and
muted. Yeah,
no,
I
I
don't
can
know
hear
how you.
you.
Huh?
I can hear you.
I know. But like I can't press any buttons.
Okay,
That's the
well,
thing. Like I can't change it to me, and I can't show what's on the screen. It's just like that.
yeah.
You know how Windows does that circle thing? It just goes
Uh-huh.
around and around.
Here.
That's what's
I
happening here. What is this? Explain what that is until I.
What? Oh, so I'm from the future. So this is my this is this is a new thing that a new look that I've started. I do have glasses. Let me see. So what Shen is doing right now is he's like rebooting.
All
There
right,
he is. Yeah.
I'm back. So,
So
what,
every
what did you
yeah.
just?
What?
I don't know what you just said, but okay.
I said you're
Um.
rebooting and I'm from the future.
Oh,
Actually, I'm not from the future. I'm from the past. I'm a time traveler. I I came here from the middle of the 20th century. I took
and
I took the long route and and so here I am. 21st century. And we're going back to the moon and I'm telling you I'm excited about it. What do we got here? Whoa.
okay. So this guy is. I'm just gonna read the commentary because
Ugh.
otherwise it's that robotic voice which we all like
Yeah, I
dislike
don't
so
like it.
much. So essentially, here, let me see if I
Valdez.
can toggle full screen. Okay, so this guy, whatever his name, Armando Valdez kidnapping in Chile, if you can believe it. So,
Mhm.
in Latin America, Chile occupies a prominent place where the bizarre story of Corporal Armando Valdez and 7 soldiers of the Chilean army has long dominated the local UFO scene. Accident occurred in 1977 in a desolate mountainous desert area
Uh-huh.
called Pampaluscuma near the town of Putre, Putre, in the northern Chilean region of Tarapacá. The case occurred
Yes.
in one of Chile's so-called hotspots for UFO sightings, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what sets apart? Corporal Valdez apparently experienced physiological and motor effects after disappearing for 15 or 20 minutes. They say that about his abduction that he moved inside a huge luminous globe that floated near the soldiers. The corporal reappeared
No.
shocked. The strangest thing about the story is that upon his return, Valdez had a 5-day beard, all right,
Whoa.
and his wristwatch has stopped after the brief experience, but his calendar 5 days in the future. It marked April 30th, 1977, instead of the actual date of April 25th.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy?
What did he
It
say?
is.
I mean, did he say where did he say he had been? Didn't they ask him like, "Where you been, Armando?"
I mean,
He didn't.
like
Yeah.
that's a really good question, right?
He's got
Like
one of
where?
the so that was 1977. That watch
Yep.
was one of those LCD watches. They were just coming online. I had one.
So
I had one when I was in high school. I had one of the first.
the the
Yep.
the the Chilean military had not disavowed the incident, and on the contrary, allowed the publication and dissemination of interviews with Valdez and the soldiers. And this incident sparked a outpouring of public interest in Chile, and
And these are
uh,
stormtroopers. Like,
I don't know. So okay, so when did this actually happen? Well, the UFO, according to reports, occurred at 3:50 by a soldier on duty on a stable who immediately alerted his boss, who was the corporal, right,
Shen,
Valdez, and the other 6 colleagues. Yep,
Shen. That's a fake beard.
that is okay. This picture may not be what he
I don't.
actually
I
looks like.
I don't actually think that. I think that's.
I think somebody
I,
just grabbed a random photo, random 3D model. All right. So,
uh-huh.
but point
Okay.
is, this hovered close to the ground at a distance about 500 meters from the soldiers. Around
Uh-huh.
4:15, so about 25 minutes later, the corporal decided to investigate himself, and that's when he disappeared for 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, um, so who, like, you know, who
I don't
knows?
know.
I don't know. I don't know
I
either.
don't know. I don't like his uniform. It looks kind of
Well,
scary. So,
I don't know if that's even like the real him. That could just be like a.
sometimes I go to the anime cons and the uh, um, Comic Con and they have this. I'm into steampunk. I don't know if you knew that. So
I knew that.
yeah. So they have these people it's like it's called diesel punk. And
What is that?
well, diesel punk is like it's like steampunk except maybe 50 years further into the future from the steampunk time. I think of steampunk as like you're set in 1850, right? and so you get all the fashions and all this stuff, and the ladies had the pretty dresses and the corsets and the men have top hats, and I've got all that. I've got that whole swag there. But diesel punk is like instead of steam, then they have diesel engines, and there's a lot of uniforms that are sort of Prussian, World War I German type things, and sometimes people kind of drift over into sort of neo-fascist kind of stuff, which so yeah,
Wow, that's
diesel punk.
different.
But it doesn't. So these guys look like diesel punk dudes.
Well, this looks like it could be the actual picture and not the previous one.
Oh,
So that's
maybe
why I pointed it out. So, but in
he
any
he
case,
he was abducted by a. So let me get this straight. He was abducted by a UFO, probably that suspended
this guy.
time.
So,
Yeah, this guy. So it's suspended time, or it took him away very far away, and a lot of time went by, and then when he came back, nothing had changed. So he had gone into the future and come back somehow. Is that
so
is that the
there are
gist?
other weird things that happened. Apparently, okay, so he vanished from sight for 15 minutes, during which a calls for him and their search yielded no results. So he disappeared literally. Um, and then they heard the officer's voice pleading for help and saw him walking towards them unsteadily. He had a dense growth of beard, and the calendar residual was 5 days fast. Okay. Conspiracy settled him near the fire. That was when he said in a strange voice, "You will never know who we are, nor where we come from, but we will return again." He then fell asleep.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Wow, that's creepy. Can
Yeah.
you imagine that? That's really creepy. Um, so I don't know.
I don't know.
If you want to read this, there's this journalist wrote apparently investigated this a number of years later in 2002. Oh wow, that was like almost like that was like 40 years later and investigated it.
Yeah.
Uh, So, thought this was an interesting case. We don't know, and except I do know that Leonard's from the past. I mean, just look at his.
Look, no, if I was from the past, I'd have Ray-Bans.
You're from the future.
I'm from the future.
All right. So with that, for the guy who's from the future, and really for anybody else, look up because you never know what you will see. That's hilarious because. Okay. All right. So we'll be back next week, as always. SG2 on Space, the only weekly space show. Remember, support the show on patreon.com/SG2 on Space. You can find us, which this one will be soon put up there on podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/SG2
Wow.
on Space. And with that, I'm going to have to say,
Me too. Mwah!
okay,
Good night
there we go.
and namaste.
Namaste. That's what I'm looking
And
for.
God bless people and